All right, friends, welcome back to our journey through the American experiment. We've walked alongside the first five presidents, five men whose decisions, ideals, and contradictions still echo in every corner of this country. Let's do a quick recap before we time travel to see how President Biden might be faring in the world of the 1800s. First up, George Washington, the general who became our first president. He set the precedent that no leader should ever become a king in America. He warned us to avoid entangling alliances and the poison of bitter partisanship, lessons we still wrestle with today. Then, John Adams, a fiery revolutionary mind who helped birth independence, but also signed the Alien and Sedition Acts, reminding us that freedom is always under pressure, even from those who helped secure it. Number 3, Thomas Jefferson, author of the Declaration, champion of liberty, yet a man whose ownership of enslaved people showed the deep contradictions at America's core. He doubled our territory with the Louisiana Purchase, changing our destiny forever. Fourth was James Madison. He gave us the Constitution and the Bill of Rights, and as president, he led us through the War of 1812, when the White House itself was set ablaze. But from that conflict came a new sense of unity and identity. And fifth, James Monroe, a soldier turned statesman. He presided over the era of good feelings, acquired Florida, and issued the Monroe Doctrine, declaring that America would stand guard over this hemisphere against old world empires. Together, these five presidents built the foundation of a country that aspired to be free and equal, even when it fell short of its own promises. They showed us that democracy demands vigilance, courage, and constant renewal. And now, let's do something a little different. Imagine if President Biden were right here in the early 1800s, facing the questions of expansion, unity, and freedom in a brand new republic. How would he measure up? What would he say? Let's check in and find out. Because this story isn't just about the past. It's about how every generation decides what America means. Until next time, we live for democracy, and we die for democracy. Stay diligent in the face of 1,000 pages, and find the truth in a pile of lies. To learn more, visit amillions.org.
Somehow, I've slipped through time. I've been tracing the footsteps of giants: Washington, Adams, Jefferson, Madison, Monroe. Each laid a stone in the foundation of our democracy. They fought wars not just with weapons, but with ideas, freedom, representation, and unity. And now I find myself at the edge of a new era. The year is 1825. The nation stands at a crossroads. Expansion, invention, and division all loom. The sixth president steps forward, John Quincy Adams. He carried the revolution in his blood and the future in his mind. A diplomat, a defender of liberty, a fighter against slavery before most dared speak its name. In so many ways, his legacy shaped the conscience of modern America. I'll step aside. History now belongs to John Quincy Adams. To learn more, visit amillions.org. We live for democracy. We die for democracy. Stay diligent in the face of 1,000 pages, and find the truth in a pile of lies.
I am John Adams. I was born on October 30th, 1735, in Braintree, Massachusetts, the son of a farmer descended from the Pilgrims of the Mayflower. From my earliest days, I prized learning and duty. Harvard trained my mind. The Revolution called my heart. As a young lawyer in Boston, I stood against Britain's oppressive taxes and levies, the Stamp Act and the Townshend Acts, that sought to bend the colonies to Parliament's will. Yet even in conflict, I believed in justice. When British soldiers fired on civilians in the Boston Massacre, I defended them in court, for I held that no man should be denied a fair trial, no matter how reviled. I served in the Continental Congress and urged my countrymen to declare independence. It fell to me to nominate George Washington to command our armies and to call upon Thomas Jefferson to draft the declaration that would proclaim our liberty. I signed that document, binding my life to the cause of freedom. War sent me across the ocean. In France, I pressed for support, then travelled to Holland to secure loans that kept our revolution alive. When the fighting ended, I helped negotiate the Treaty of Paris, which won recognition of our sovereignty. Afterward, I became America's first minister to Britain. Returning home, I was elected the first vice president under George Washington. The office was ill-defined and often thankless, but I did my duty with the same resolve I brought to war and diplomacy. Among my executive measures were proclamations and orders to strengthen our navy, secure our neutrality, and maintain order in a time of fierce division. I issued appointments and commissions that would shape our courts and institutions for decades to come. In retirement, I returned to Quincy, to books, to the fields, and to my beloved Abigail, whose letters and counsel had sustained me through every trial. I lived to see my son, John Quincy Adams, become president, a testament that liberty can be inherited when it is defended with courage. I died on July 4, 1826, the 50th anniversary of our Declaration of Independence. My final thoughts were of my old friend and rival, Thomas Jefferson, who departed this world that same day. I have been called opinionated, stubborn, and blunt. I make no apologies, for I knew that this nation, born of high ideals, would endure only if its leaders had the resolve to speak truth and bear sacrifice. The direction I set for America was clear: independence secured by law, liberty guarded by vigilance, and government entrusted to the people themselves. May my country always remember that no office, no power, and no ambition is greater than the sacred cause of freedom.
My fellow Americans, as we continue exploring the history that shaped our nation, it is my honor to introduce the 7th President of the United States, Andrew Jackson. Andrew Jackson was a soldier, a frontier lawyer, and a president who left an enduring mark on America. He was known as the champion of the common citizen, a leader who believed government should be accountable to the people rather than the privileged few. Under his leadership, the presidency became a more powerful office and American democracy took on a broader, more populist spirit. His legacy is complex. He strengthened the Union and expanded democratic participation, but his policies also caused great suffering for Native American nations. His life reminds us that our history includes triumph and tragedy, progress and injustice, all woven together. Today we look back to understand, to learn, and to strive for a more perfect union. It is now my privilege to turn the stage over to Andrew Jackson himself.
I am Andrew Jackson. I was born on March 15, 1767, in the Carolina backcountry, raised in hardship on the edge of the wilderness. Orphaned young, I learned that resilience is forged in adversity. As a boy, I carried scars from the boots and blades of British soldiers, a reminder of the price of liberty. I earned my name and reputation as a fighter, first as a militia officer defending the frontier, later as Major General in the War of 1812. At New Orleans, I led an outnumbered force to a decisive victory over the British, securing our independence once and for all in the eyes of the world. That triumph made me a hero to my countrymen. In 1829, the people raised me to the highest office in the Republic. I became the 7th President of the United States, the firstborn to humble origins, the first to claim the White House as the champion of the common man against the entrenched power of privilege. I believed government must remain accountable to the people. No interest, however wealthy or well-connected, would be allowed to subvert the will of the majority. To that end, I opposed the Bank of the United States, which I saw as a dangerous monopoly that favored the few over the many. When Congress voted to recharter the bank, I wielded my veto power, declaring it incompatible with our democratic principles. My presidency was also marked by controversy. I enforced Indian removal, signing the Indian Removal Act and upholding its provisions. I believed relocation was necessary to resolve conflict between settlers and native nations. This policy led to suffering and sorrow along the Trail of Tears, a legacy that weighs heavily upon my name. I acted decisively to preserve the Union when South Carolina claimed the right to nullify federal law. I proclaimed that no state could unmake the bonds of our Constitution. I was prepared to use force if necessary to uphold the supremacy of the Union. During my time in office, I issued a number of executive orders and directives. Among them, on April 8, 1829, I ordered that no invalid pensions be paid until proof was filed with the department, and the Secretary had rendered a decision. No pension would be granted to active officers of the Army except those already adjudged. On June 12, 1830, I proclaimed a free and full pardon to all deserters from the army, in keeping with the repeal of the death penalty for desertion in peacetime. Those who returned were restored to duty. Those who remained at large were forever barred from military service. On August 6, 1831, I instructed the Acting Secretary of War and the Secretary of the Navy to report for dismissal any clerk who claimed the benefits of the Insolvent Debtors Act for debts contracted during my administration. I issued further orders to maintain discipline, protect the Treasury, and defend the integrity of public service. Throughout my 2 terms, I governed with a fierce conviction that America must belong to her citizens, not to the aristocracy of birth or money. I have been praised as the tribune of democracy and condemned as a tyrant. Let history judge my deeds, but let no one doubt my resolve to keep the Republic in the hands of the people. Among them, on April 8, 1829, I ordered that no invalid pensions be paid until proof was filed with the department, and the Secretary had rendered a decision. No pension would be granted to active officers of the Army except those already adjudged. On June 12, 1830, I proclaimed a free and full pardon to all deserters from the Army, in keeping with the repeal of the death penalty for desertion in peacetime. Those who returned were restored to duty. Those who remained at large were forever barred from military service. On August 6, 1831, I instructed the Acting Secretary of War and the Secretary of the Navy to report. I leave you this: a nation stronger than it was when I took office, a union preserved, a democracy made more responsive to the voice of ordinary Americans. That was my purpose, and that is my...
My fellow Americans, as our journey through the pages of history continues, it is my honor to introduce the 8th President of the United States, Martin Van Buren. Van Buren was a skilled politician and organizer, often called the Little Magician for his political savvy. He helped build the modern Democratic Party and served as a bridge between the Founding Fathers' era and the rapidly changing America of the 19th century. His presidency faced economic challenges, but his commitment to the principles of democracy and the rule of law helped shape the evolving American political landscape. Let us now look back and hear from Martin Van Buren himself. We live for democracy, and we die for democracy. Stay diligent in the face of 1,000 pages and find the truth in a pile of lies. Now, we'll take a short break brought to you by our generous sponsors. Stay with us. More history and insight is coming up next.
Pauline's Pizza, where we deliver happiness one slice at a time. What's your craving today?
Yeah, hi. Is Seymour there?
Oh, Seymour. I think he might be busy making our special pies. But hey, why not swing by the pizzeria? We've got a pie with your name on it. Anything else I can help you with?
I was looking for Seymour Butts.
Ah, I see. Well, if you're looking for Seymour Butts, he might be hiding behind a pepperoni slice. Anything else I can do for you today?
No, that's it.
I am Martin Van Buren, the 8th President of the United States, serving from 1837 to 1841. Born on December 5, 1782, in Kinderhook, New York, I rose from humble beginnings as the son of a tavern keeper to become a skilled politician and one of the founding architects of the modern Democratic Party. Before my presidency, I served as a U.S. Senator, Governor of New York, and Secretary of State under President Andrew Jackson, whose political vision I embraced and continued. I was also Vice President during Jackson's second term. My presidency was marked by great challenges, especially the Panic of 1837, a severe financial crisis that triggered a major economic depression. Despite my efforts, the country struggled through this downturn during my term. Among my executive actions, I issued orders emphasizing respect and care for former President Andrew Jackson. For example, on March 7, 1837, I directed that the Surgeon General of the Army accompany Jackson to ensure his health and safety during his return home. This showed my personal respect for my predecessor and the importance of honoring those who served the nation. During my administration, I continued policies on territorial expansion and Native American affairs. While the Indian removal policies began under Jackson, my government oversaw their continued implementation, which remains a controversial part of our history. I presided over a growing nation, with westward expansion accelerating, Yet my presidency faced criticism for how the economic crisis was handled and the hardship it caused many Americans. Still, my role in shaping the Democratic Party and guiding the country through a turbulent era has left a lasting legacy in American political history. I am remembered as a dedicated public servant who navigated the complexities of a young and evolving republic. To learn more about my life and the history of this nation, visit emilians.org.
Ladies and gentlemen, as we continue our journey through the history of the American presidency, we arrive at the 9th President of the United States, William Henry Harrison. William Henry Harrison was a military leader, a public servant, and a symbol of the early spirit of American expansion. He earned national fame as the hero of the Battle of Tippecanoe, and he became the first president to campaign actively for office, setting the stage for the modern election process. Though his presidency was tragically brief, lasting only 1 month before his death, Harrison's life and service remind us that leadership requires courage, sacrifice, and commitment to country above all else. Today, he stands as a testament to the resilience of our constitutional system, which ensured the peaceful transfer of power and the continuity of government even in moments of sudden loss. Let us now turn our attention to learn more about President William Henry Harrison and reflect on the contributions he made that still echo in our democracy.
I am William Henry Harrison, the 9th President of the United States. My journey began in Virginia, where I was born in 1773. Before the presidency, I devoted much of my life to military service and public duty. As an officer and commander, I led American forces to victory at the Battle of Tippecanoe in 1811, an accomplishment that defined my reputation as a national hero and earned me the nickname Old Tippecanoe. My leadership continued during the War of 1812, where I commanded troops in the Northwest and secured important victories that expanded and defended American territory. In politics, I served as governor of the Indiana Territory and later as a U.S. senator and diplomat. My 1840 presidential campaign was one of the most memorable in history, using powerful slogans like Tippecanoe and Tyler Too, and rallying voters with a populist spirit that still influences American politics today. During my short time in office, I issued orders organizing the military honors for my own funeral procession after I fell gravely ill. Though I became the first president to die in office, the events surrounding my death shaped the future of the presidency in profound ways. I gave the longest inaugural address in American history, standing outside for nearly 2 hours without a hat or coat. For many years, it was believed this led to pneumonia that ended my life just 30 days later. But later research suggests I likely died of enteric fever caused by contaminated water near the White House. My passing created a constitutional crisis that was resolved when my vice president, John Tyler, declared himself president, establishing a vital precedent for the peaceful transfer of power that still guides the nation today. Though my presidency was brief, my service as a soldier and leader helped expand American territory, shape the young republic's democratic spirit, and ensure that the office of the presidency could endure even in the face of sudden loss. If you'd like to learn more about the history that built America, visit emilians.org. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, and share to help others discover these stories. We'll be right back after this commercial break.
Pauline's Pizza, where we deliver happiness one slice at a time. What's your craving today?
Hi, can you tell me about your menu?
Of course. We offer handmade pizzas with different crusts like thin crust, original, or deep dish. We also have fresh salads, pastas, and both bone-in and boneless wings. Would you like to hear about our specialty pies or any current special deals?
Do you have any gluten-free options?
Yes, we do. Our gluten-free crusts are super tasty, but there's a $3 upcharge. Would you like me to go over the options with you?
Great. What's the largest size pizza you offer?
Our largest size is the extra large pizza, perfect for feeding a crowd. Plus, if you upgrade to an extra large, you'll get a free 2-liter soda. How does that sound?
That sounds great. Can I get that gluten-free?
Absolutely. You can get the extra large with a gluten-free crust. What toppings would you like on your pizza?
Do you offer any vegan cheese options?
Yes, we do. Our vegan cheese is delicious and comes with a $3 upcharge. Would you like to add that to your gluten-free pizza?
Yes.
Great choice. So we've got an extra large gluten-free pizza with vegan cheese. Any other toppings you'd like to add?
Well, one moment. What about hosting an event? Do you have any space for a birthday party?
Yes, we do host parties and offer catering. Let me get your email address so I can send over our catering plans. How many people are you planning to invite?
I left my sunglasses there last week. Can you check if they're still there?
I can definitely check for you. Can you describe the sunglasses for me?
They're black with
Got
silver frames.
Thanks for the details. I'll have someone check on that for you. Is there anything else I can help with today?
No, that's all for now. I'll call back later. Thanks.
I am John Tyler, the 10th President of the United States, serving from 1841 to 1845. I became the first Vice President in American history to assume the presidency upon the death of my predecessor, William Henry Harrison. By taking the oath and declaring myself president rather than merely acting president, I set the precedent that the vice president fully becomes president, a standard that governs our democracy to this day. My presidency was marked by fierce battles over economic policy. When I vetoed bills to create a new National Bank of the United States, my entire cabinet, except Secretary of State Daniel Webster, resigned in protest. Though this conflict weakened my support among Whigs, it also asserted the power of the executive branch to act independently of Congress. During my term, America's borders and technology advanced in ways that still shape the nation. I signed the Webster-Ashburton Treaty with Britain, settling the Maine-Canada boundary and resolving long-standing tensions. Under my watch, the first telegraph line in the United States was completed between Washington, D.C. and Baltimore, a milestone that launched a new era of instant communication. One of my most consequential actions was the annexation of Texas. Although the Senate initially rejected a treaty, I pressed forward using a joint resolution of Congress, which required only a simple majority. On March 1, 1845, I signed the resolution offering Texas statehood, an act that expanded American territory and set the stage for future conflicts over slavery. Texas officially joined the Union later that year. I also oversaw the admission of Florida as the 27th state, furthering America's growth. My tenure revealed the tensions between states' rights and federal power, and between North and South, tensions that would eventually erupt into civil war. Personally, I became the first president to marry while in office when I wed Julia Gardner, 30 years my junior, in 1844. Though my marriage
It's over 900 pages long, and it's about to change everything from your taxes to your student loans to Medicaid. Most people will never read it, so I did. And in this video, I'm breaking down the wildest, weirdest, and most important parts, so you actually know what's coming. Some of it might help you. Some of it might hit you where it hurts. Let's find out what's really inside. This section of the bill focuses on changes to federal nutrition programs, especially SNAP, the Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program. It's under Title I, Subtitle A, and it covers everything from how food benefits are calculated to new work requirements and who qualifies. If you or someone in your family uses food assistance, this part is especially important. These changes affect how benefits are measured, who gets them, and how states are expected to manage the program moving forward. So the government's official food benchmark, called the Thrifty Food Plan, is basically how they calculate how much support a family gets through SNAP. Under this bill, they're freezing the structure of that plan. No more frequent updates based on modern nutrition science or changing eating habits unless certain conditions are met. The only thing that's going to change each year is the cost, adjusted for inflation using the Consumer Price Index. What that means in practice is if healthy foods get more expensive or people's dietary needs shift, the benefit levels won't keep up. The plan stays locked unless the USDA decides to do a full reevaluation, and they can't even consider that before 2027. And even then, they're not allowed to increase the overall cost of the plan. it has to stay budget neutral. So even if food prices rise, the value can't increase beyond what's already been allocated. Also, no matter how big your family is, SNAP benefits cap out at 200% of the base four-person household allotment. So families with more than 8 people can't get proportional increases after that point. Then there's the update to work requirements. If you're between 18 and 65, able-bodied, and not working at least 80 hours a month or enrolled in training, you risk losing benefits. There are a few carve-outs. If you're under 18 or over 65, pregnant, medically unfit for work, or caring for a child under 14, you're exempt. Also, members of federally recognized tribes and urban Indians are excluded from the work requirement. But the enforcement is getting stricter. Waivers that let states temporarily pause these rules, much harder to get now. For Alaska and Hawaii, they can still apply for waivers as long as they're showing good faith efforts to comply. But those waivers expire by the end of 2028, and the states have to submit quarterly reports to show they're making progress. If they don't, the federal government can cut the waiver short. Something else that's changing is how utility costs factor into SNAP calculations. Right now, households receiving energy assistance can qualify for a higher deduction when determining how much food aid they receive. That helps lower their countable income. But this bill restricts that. Only households that include an elderly or disabled member can continue using the standard utility allowance. All other households lose that benefit, and internet expenses are no longer counted at all. Even though people use internet access for job searches, remote work, school, and accessing benefit portals, the bill now says those monthly service fees can't be used as part of the shelter cost deduction. So, SNAP benefits won't reflect that very real modern expense. Now here's something that could affect states more directly. There's a new cost-sharing rule tied to how accurately states manage their SNAP payments. If a state has a low error rate, under 6%, they keep full federal support. But if the error rate climbs above 10%, they'll lose 15% of their federal funding for those payments. And if they're somewhere in the middle, they still get reduced funding. So states now have a reason to be extra strict on processing, which could mean tougher verification or longer wait times for applicants. Another federal pullback is on administrative cost sharing. Up until now, the USDA covered 50% of a state's administrative costs for managing SNAP. Starting in 2027, that drops to just 25%. So states have to find more funding on their own to keep the programs running, which again could lead to fewer staff, more backlogs, or slower service for people applying. There's also a funding cutoff for the National Education and Obesity Prevention Program. That program funded nutrition education in communities, things like healthy eating classes, how to shop smart on a budget, or outreach on diabetes prevention. It's being ended after 2025. So public health education tied to SNAP benefits might quietly disappear over the next year or so. Lastly, there are changes to who qualifies for SNAP based on immigration status. From now on, only U.S. citizens, lawful permanent residents, certain Cuban and Haitian entrants, or those lawfully residing under a compact of free association agreement can receive SNAP benefits. Everyone else, including many legal non-citizens with temporary or uncertain status, will no longer qualify. And even though someone might be ineligible themselves, their income still counts against the household when calculating benefits. So for mixed status families, that can result in lower support, even if only one member is technically ineligible. All these changes add up to a much tighter system, less flexibility, more restrictions, and higher pressure on both states and individuals to meet the rules or risk losing access. This section of the bill covers Medicaid reforms under Title VII, Subtitle B, Chapter 1. It's focused on how states determine eligibility, how they handle enrollment, and how they manage costs. There's a clear shift here toward reducing federal spending by cracking down on what lawmakers are calling waste, duplication, and fraud. But what that actually means is a much more rigorous process for people applying for or staying on Medicaid. If you've ever had to recertify your benefits or help a family member navigate Medicaid forms, this part might feel especially familiar. and maybe a little frustrating. So here's where it starts. The bill freezes two major Medicaid rules that would have expanded access to people in low income or elderly groups. One was meant to improve enrollment in Medicare savings programs. The other focused on making it easier to qualify for Medicaid, CHIP, and the basic health program. Both are now on hold under this new law, blocked by a moratorium. And that's just the start. States are now required to reduce duplicate enrollment between Medicaid and CHIP. In theory, that sounds efficient, but in practice, it could mean more red tape for families who have children covered under CHIP and adults on Medicaid. If systems don't talk to each other well, which many don't, families could lose coverage for reasons that have nothing to do with income or need. They're also targeting people who have passed away but are still marked as enrolled in the system. States now have to regularly check for and remove deceased individuals from Medicaid rolls. Same goes for deceased providers. Doctors or clinics, they're still showing up as billable even after they're gone. Again, this is being presented as a cost-saving measure, but it requires new systems, new software, and more oversight, which many states are already struggling to keep up with. And then we get to payment reductions. If states are making excess payments, meaning they're paying more than they should be for certain services or beneficiaries, the federal government is going to reduce the money it sends them. It's a way of saying, clean up your books or we'll send you less. Another big change is how often eligibility redeterminations happen. Basically, states now have to recheck whether someone still qualifies for Medicaid more frequently. So if your income goes up, or if your paperwork doesn't get submitted on time, you could be kicked off. This is especially tough for people with fluctuating income, like hourly workers, gig workers, or anyone in seasonal jobs. And then there's the home equity limit. Right now, Medicaid has a rule that if your home is worth too much, you might not qualify for long-term care support. This bill tightens that rule even more. It raises the threshold states can use, but also gives them the option to use lower limits if they want. That could hit seniors hardest, especially those who own their homes but live on fixed incomes. The next part of the section deals with immigration and emergency Medicaid. It restricts Medicaid access to certain
Folks, let's talk plain. After this big, beautiful bill breakdown you just heard about, I want you to understand something important. Anytime you've got legislation that big, that complicated, hundreds or even thousands of pages, there are going to be errors, oversights, and unintended consequences, especially when it's rushed through in a month or two without the kind of careful debate and scrutiny it really needs. When you jam something through Congress that fast, you don't just end up with typos. You end up with loopholes, hidden giveaways, and rules that don't work the way people were promised. This isn't about politics. It's about the reality that big, sweeping changes to our laws are going to affect all of us, our jobs, our families, our communities. Whether you supported this bill or you were against it, it's going to have consequences that touch every American in one way or another. So I'm urging you, pay attention, ask questions, hold your elected officials accountable for what's really in this legislation and how it's going to be implemented, because our democracy only works when the people are informed and engaged. Thanks for taking the time to hear the facts. We're in this together, and together we're going to keep fighting for what's right.
Hi, I'm Terrence, a marketing professional with a passion for helping your business grow smarter and faster. Here at Da Bomb Digital Media, based right here in Atlanta, Georgia, we specialize in bringing your vision to life. Whether you're launching your first website or reimagining your entire digital presence, we've got you covered. From modern website design and search engine optimization to setting up your own AI-powered agency tools, we deliver innovative solutions that keep you ahead of the curve. Ready to unlock your business's full potential? Let's build something remarkable together. For more information, visit our YouTube channel. Just search Da Bomb Digital Media on YouTube and start exploring tips, success stories, and everything you need to elevate your brand. Hey everybody, welcome back to eMillions, where we break down the history they don't always teach you, and why it still matters right now. Today we're covering Presidents 6 through 10, and what they meant for our democracy. John Quincy Adams, the sixth president, showed us what it means to serve with integrity, even after leaving the White House, fighting against slavery as a congressman. He proved that public service doesn't stop when your term does. Andrew Jackson, the 7th president, expanded the power of the presidency in ways we still feel today. But he also carried out policies, like the Indian Removal Act, that caused immense suffering. His legacy is complicated, and it reminds us to confront our history honestly. Martin Van Buren, the 8th president, helped build the modern political party system and guided the country through economic turmoil. He reminds us that leadership is tested most when things fall apart. William Henry Harrison, our 9th president, had the shortest presidency ever, just 31 days. His death showed how fragile government stability can be and how important clear rules of succession are. John Tyler, the 10th president, set the precedent that the vice president fully becomes president, not just acting president, when a president dies. That principle of continuity kept our system strong then and still guides us today. All these leaders, in their own ways, shaped the America we live in. Some of their actions moved us closer to our ideals of freedom and equality. Others showed us what happens when those ideals are ignored. And that's why we have to stay vigilant. We have to keep living for democracy. It means not just celebrating our rights, but defending them. It means standing up when you see injustice, getting involved in your community, and making your voice heard. Because democracy doesn't defend itself, we do. That's our time for today. And remember, stay informed, stay engaged, and always live for democracy. Be sure to join us for our Independence Day episode, where we'll break down Presidents 11 through 15, how they steered the country toward expansion, conflict, and ultimately the Civil War. You won't want to miss it. Like, comment, and subscribe to keep this conversation going, and share this video with someone who wants to understand why history still matters. See you next time.